Hello everyone once again. You should be watching this for the last task or question that you've got, which is a kind of big interpretation question on whether the NHS was too costly and unrealistic, and whether perhaps Labour just simply brought in something that they shouldn't, on a scale that they shouldn't perhaps as well. So there's kind of two ways of looking at this question, this answer. On the one hand, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of critics, that say that it was too costly and that it was unrealistic. The figures that they point to with things like this is that by 1951, the cost of the NHS was about £500 million a year. Now, that is a huge amount more than the £140 million a year that Labour had estimated when they first came into power. Is actually 3.5 times more. So a lot of critics say, well, actually, look, this is huge amounts of money, perhaps money that could have been spent elsewhere, and that Labour were wrong to do that. People point to things like prescriptions. They cost £89 million a year more than perhaps they should have done. Free prescriptions. Now, some people might argue, well, some of those free prescriptions, some people could have possibly had enough money to pay for. So should Labour have given them all out for free? Well, maybe not. Maybe that should have been done on a, well, if you can afford it, then you should pay for it measure. I don't know. That's what you've got to decide. Lastly, as well, we see evidence of a lot of people basically going to the GP and getting things for free that maybe simply they didn't want to pay for in the shops. Cheap things as well, like paracetamol. Well, in the case, sorry, not paracetamol. Paracetamol's today's thing. Aspirin, cotton wool. Those type of things that ultimately most people probably could have afforded, and the fact that they wasted perhaps a doctor's time to go and get those cost the NHS a lot of money. So that's your criticism. That's your one side of the argument, where you're saying, well, actually, yeah, maybe it is too costly, maybe it is too unrealistic. Now, the other side of the argument, and this is certainly one that I see a little bit more, and you all know that I'm a bit of a socialist anyway, so I like the Labour government. They, to me, these guys are kind of heroes of a lot of these people after the Second War. To me, anyway. What I would look at is to say, well, if you look at things like the demand for services, so if you look at the demand there was for spectacles, the demand there was for dentistry, and the sheer amount of people that signed up for doctor surgeries, right? So we've got, well over sort of pretty much everyone basically within the first couple of months the NHS had signed up. What that shows is that these people were desperate for decent healthcare and desperate for something to help them live better lives, to make sure that they weren't getting sick. And, you can imagine that if 5 million people get free NHS glasses very soon after the NHS is introduced in 1948, then that shows you that 5 million people previously to 1948 were walking around with bad eyesight and couldn't afford to get glasses. So a lot of people were basically suffering and had a really poor standard of living. So my argument would be is that actually, yes, it costs a lot of money, but Labour are meeting demand. Okay, so no matter what the cost, Labour are putting the people first. So they're saying, well, it doesn't matter if this costs 3 times more than we said it would. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everyone gets that free treatment that they need. So they're saying, well, look, you've fought a war for us. You've done everything that you possibly could to keep this country going. Now it's time for the government to give back, and we're going to make sure that you have as good a standard of living as you possibly can, no matter what the cost is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right opinion. So maybe you might see this as a waste of money. Were there things perhaps that Labour shouldn't have given out for free? Or do you think that Labour were pretty good and they were pretty good at just meeting the demands of the people regardless of cost? So should they be criticised for the cost and going over budget because money doesn't grow on trees. So maybe they should. What do you think?